Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I am your show host for today's show, the Film and Music Show. This show is hosted typically by Dr. Madalenechan, and she has the day off. The show is brought to you by Audi K. Barrier. Thank you so much, Audi, for your service, and thank you for sponsoring this program. This is a program where we speak with people who are influencers in the film and music industry. And today we have a special guest who has joined us on other shows, and I wasn't actually aware of her connection to film and music. So we're going to find out all about it. Her name is Steffanie Costigan, and she's an author and journalist, but also has experience in the film industry. Let's welcome her to the program. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, it's so good to see you, especially on a show where we're going to learn some other aspects of your career and other talents that you have. So, Steffanie, first of all, where are you joining us from today?
I'm from Canada, Alberta.
Fantastic. We love our friends in Canada. And you've been on, I think, the Wise Ones in the Corner bookstore. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we talked before on, and our other show hosts have talked to you about your work as an author and a journalist. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that, and then we'll get into film and music.
Well, yeah, thank you. So I do journalism, particularly in the crime and homelessness department. That's my beat. And then I'm also an author. I've published so far 2 books, my young adult book of Land of the Dragon, a historic fantasy, and most recently a children's book called A Stony Gaze about group polarization and mob mentality.
Wow, they are some heavy topics. Congratulations. That is super fun. I love it. You're really making a difference in the world. How have you been able to take your experience as an author and journalist and then relay it or parlay it into film and music industry?
So it's kind of funny. I feel like I was more in kind of the film and music industry before I became into journalism and stuff like that. I was always kind of the writer, but I also, have a lot of experience in theater. And I think that's kind of what helped me to present myself. But also I worked on writing even the plays and screenplays and stories that go behind it. And I actually found out I kind of prefer that more than being in the spotlight.
I understand exactly what you're saying. I used to host all of our television shows, and now I much rather produce them because it's fun just learning some new things and taking the platform to a new level. So what was your experience working in film and music compared to the community of authors? Because I found that the author community is very much giving back and supportive. Is film and music the same?
No.
I know that answer, but
it's very different. The people are very different in the sense that I think authors are a little more introverted, where in the community of actors in film and whatnot, they're more extroverted. So you can I find there's a little more behind the scene drama per se. than there is in the author community.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's interesting because even as an author, there are various ways to put your content out there. So there's audiobooks as well, and you can even turn your books into animations, which then go into film and music. Tell us about any experience you have in these two areas.
So yeah, when I was very young, I was like 18, 19. Um, I've been working on Land of the Dragon since I was 12, the novel I just published. So it came to life a lot for me because I actually had a cast at one point of over 100 people doing voice acting. It was a very dramatized audiobook, you could say. Since then, we've taken it down because the book is published and things have changed in the book from past, but we plan on doing another audiobook again. And I like the dramatization. I know audiobooks normally have like one narrator and or two narrators, but I love the dramatization where there's a voice for everybody. It just brings it so much more life into it. So that's kind of the plans going forward, continuing with the audio book. And I know at one point I had, and I won't go into detail of which one it was, but I had a really well known company um, that was quite popular reach out to me when I was really young, interested in turning Land of the Dragon into like almost a cartoon series.
What ended up happening with that? And congratulations, by the way, that's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah. So at the end, there was just like I wasn't willing to compromise certain things. As you know, the especially the higher branded names you get, the more I guess they can try to take advantage of people that aren't as familiar with the industry as I was back then, being very young, 18, 19. But I wouldn't have it because I knew I was a little more smarter in the film sense, and I knew what a good contract was versus a not so fair contract. So that's what happened at the end is I just didn't agree to it. Um, and I wouldn't lower my story standards, you could say.
I love the fact that you were savvy and you protected your own rights, because a lot of times I hear stories from people that they didn't understand, or they didn't read the contract, or their person representing them didn't tell them, and they lost the rights to the work that they created, or the characters were changed, or the storyline was changed. And by the way, for people who are on our audio platforms only, we are showing Stephanie's website here, which is landofthedragon.ca, CA as in Canada. So please go over there and take a look. So for an audiobook, I've never done an audiobook yet. I'd like to do one, but I've been told that these standards are extremely high, and then it has to be recorded in a soundproof room or something, or it's best to outsource it to someone else. What are your thoughts about this?
So it's true. Like for audiobooks, the industry was super high. That's another reason I didn't use my old recordings because the equipment back then versus now is very different and the quality isn't as good as it is now, right? So it's just you have to make sure you're editing it right. That's why like a lot of authors are discouraged or they're advised not to do their own audiobooks just because it can be very complicated on the layout and getting, I guess, success with it being accepted with the standards, especially if they don't have the proper equipment to do the recording, can run into some issues there. So, yeah, but I've talked to like a lot of voice actors and people that edit, you could say, audiobooks and do it for a living. And yeah, they can tell you that it's not just anybody can do it. It's not something you can just Google and do it yourself. It takes definitely some training. I have a little bit of a background in it as I took digital communications and media. And basically, I learned radio. I learned how to talk for radio. I learned how to edit for radio and whatnot. So I have a little bit more of a background in that kind of thing.
That's super important. And I also think that if you have someone who is a professional voiceover actor, you're going to incur some expenses. And I think a person has to evaluate what they think the sales are going to be if they're doing their own marketing and yet they're hiring professionals to do the voiceovers. I know for myself, just in doing book readings, it's very difficult for me personally to change my voice to different characters because I forget which character sounds like what. And so I don't even enjoy doing the book readings because I feel so much pressure to try to remember the ladybug sounds like this, the pig sounds like that. And it is challenging. So working with a professional, I think, makes a lot of sense. I think it's also interesting, especially, I don't know if it was before the pandemic and then through the pandemic, there have been a number of television shows slash streaming programs about dragons or where dragons are featured. So I want to come back to your book, Land of the Dragon. I want to bring up the website again. And I want you to share with us a little bit about the characters that are portrayed in here. Is that something you can do for us?
Definitely, yeah. So, with developing, a good story and whatnot, I used a a really good personality test, a 16 personality test. It's really well done. Definitely recommend it. But I use that in developing each of these characters so that they don't make choices that convenience the story. They make choices that keeps them within the character. And for me, I felt like that was extremely important because I have noticed a drop in quality with story plots and whatnot in the show industry. It's quite sad because it's about pumping things out, but there a lot of the times the characters will actually go out of character to move the story from A to B, and it drives me absolutely bonkers. And I think that's why, like, I've noticed a shift in movies and shows that nowadays, like, movies are not as big. It's more the series and the episodes, and more books and whatnot are being picked up in the show industry. And that's because the books are very well developed, right? They've been planned out, and they usually pick the really popular books that are out there. And I think that's genius because they are running out of ideas. That's why we're seeing sequels to all these older popular shows, but then everybody's disappointed because it wasn't as good as the original, when really they just need to let it go and start picking up more authors and more books and whatnot, because that, I think, is going to be the driving force to future TV series, to future classic movies and whatnot, is picking up these good stories that are well developed instead of trying to, reuse and go back to all these old stories. They were good for a reason, but when they pick them back up, they just don't have the same effect or authenticity or that they did originally, right? They just, a matter of fact, a lot of people get disappointed and are just really like, not to diss, but I remember like Willow, the classic show of Willow, and how they tried to pick it back up and make a TV series out of that. That was just absolutely terrible. It went only for one season and then it was dropped, and it was absolutely horrible. Like, I felt like Willow wasn't even his old character or his old self. It was just such a disappointment to fans. Um, so that's what I think these industries are running out of ideas, and they're not planning the characters very well. And that's why I think it's very important that they actually pick up uh, books, they pick up stories that are well developed. And that was kind of in Land of the Dragon, my hopes is I wanted the characters really well developed. That's why I did that personality test with each of them. Also doing a audiobook with a cast of over 100 really brought the characters even more to life and made me do even some fixing and more character development, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. You brought up so many good points there, and I have to say, I'm not someone who watches mainstream television. I watch the streaming channels, and sometimes I'll get to the end of a series and I'll be like, "That didn't even make any sense. The guy was doing this, now he's doing that. What happened to her?" So you're spot on with that. I think that they're running out of content. So you've just mentioned some great ways that they come up with new content. I'd love to have you share with us with these 16 different personalities. Is it's the one we have here, the tests. So tell us about Eleanor and these letters for that personality. Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, so these letters are based on certain, like, I guess, characteristics. So for Eleanor's personality, and Eleanor, by the way, is like the main female protagonist in Land of the Dragon. But for her, she would be identified in this 16 personality test as a campaigner. And campaigners are more kind of extroverted, like the letters stand for for something. The E is extroverted. And I love how they did this because they have like a group. They classify personalities in a group and almost color coded, but there's different characters in different groups. And Eleanor, I believe, was in the green. She's in the green group. I can't remember what it stood for. I know they have like a yellow group, a blue group, a purple group, and a yellow group, with all these different kind of personality types. And yeah, basically a campaigner is more outgoing. A lot of characters are actually based on this kind of personality. I've seen that. I'm trying to remember which ones, but I saw that. I don't know who watches kind of anime, but there's a show, Naruto. The main character, Naruto, is the same kind of personality type as this, but it's really well developed. They have all these different characters that would be classified under this personality. What I like about this personality test, I believe it was a group of counselors or therapists that came up with this test, is that they have basically the weaknesses, the what motivates this personality type, the strengths, the romance, how they even parent. It's really good. Like, I'm trying to see here, but yeah, no, it's a great test, and that's why I really wanted to use it because the questions even for the test are more accurate. It's not like one of those Mickey Mouse personality tests where it's like, "Oh, moon or sun or what's your favorite color?" It's nothing cheesy like that. It's actually well developed psychological questions to classify you under certain personality tests or types, and I believe they've even expanded it even further. But yeah, that's what I used in developing Eleanor is I kind of took the test within the character's perspective, and then got their personality test and then just expanded it, or the result, I should say. I expanded it in the story. Um, it's interesting because even when developing the story, music played a huge part in the development. So, like when the characters were feeling a certain way or certain mood or going through certain issues and challenges, I would listen to the music to really get into the character's perspective. There were even some points where I got so indulged in writing this character that I would even dress as the character to even get further into the character's perspective. Kind of like how some actors, when they're acting, they will go really into the character. They'll dress like the character. They'll try thinking like the character. They'll put themselves in situations that could be relatable to the character so that they could properly, I guess, simulate or show, be this character for the screens.
It's really fascinating. I've never heard this approach taken before, and I just want to applaud you for it. I'm wondering, with these 16 different personalities, how do the characters, when you're doing the writing, how do you write the interaction between the personality types? Are you basing it on psychology or psychiatry or something from a business key learning, or because of all the personality tests that are given by employers, for example, DISC and others?
Well, I think the steps to how I do this, and I have heard that comment quite often that they've never heard of a writer doing this. Like it's a very unique approach, but it's a very intimate approach. So, like for me, I love writing in first person perspective because I find it so intimate, and I find the reader can put the reader in the shoes of the character. So as they're reading, it's almost like they're experiencing and understanding and seeing what the character sees, and they only know what the character knows. So for that, to get that intimate into the character, I have three perspectives in Land of the Dragon. I have my main protagonist, Eleanor, it's the female lead, and then I have the misunderstood character, you could say, which is her sister Tara, and then I have the main protagonist, kind of heroine, which is Andrew. So before I write in the perspective of these people, or as, for example, Eleanor, I will do a couple of things before I even begin writing, almost like a little bit of a ritual. I will go to the personality test, read over her, I guess, results again, and then I'll kind of study it out. Then I used to like dress up as her. I would listen to music that kind of inspired me to develop that character. And then I would go to the scene, see what's happening last off in that scene, whether it was if it was a sad scene, then I would listen to some music that would help me simulate the emotions that she's feeling. So then I could feel them, and then I could write it out, because you cannot do justice in developing a story or a character unless you've kind of had a taste of what they're feeling in that moment or what they're experiencing. And I think that's also what makes a good director, because the director cannot direct where the characters are going or the story if they're not fully immersed and experiencing what the character's experiencing. And I think that's why it's also super important that if or when movies and companies take on a story that's been developed by the author, that they actually need the author almost as a co-director, because uh, they cannot fully simulate or um, direct the full image unless they have the creator of it with them that kind of can help with the direction.
Thanks for sharing that, Stephanie. What kind of impact does all of this have on you emotionally? So are you completely exhausted? It sounds like you're pouring yourself into this. How is it impacting you?
Well, like I said, this story is a story I've been developing since I was 12 years old. So there were times where I spent, as especially before I had kids, my whole day just writing and developing and tweaking and fixing. Like it was pretty intense. I can definitely say there are certain characters that are emotionally draining to to write. And my husband can also kind of testify to that. That he knew after I wrote a particular character, because I felt a little grumpy afterwards, because it's just emotionally exhausting to put yourself in a certain character, especially if the character is very negative. It takes some time uh, to kind of clean that off your emotions or yourself, because it's a lot trying to put yourself so intimately and intensely in this character, um, it can be overwhelming, that's for sure. But then you kind of learn a balance of um, how to, as soon as, the writing is down, how to go back and be yourself. So you just kind of learn the balance. And I believe that's the same probably feeling as actors feel too, is they get very intimate with the character if they're good actors. And you know, they they change. They actually, like, in that moment, they change to be that character in order to do the proper expressions, to display the proper, um, I guess, personality. People have to really, like, almost forget themselves in that moment. So that's kind of how it felt too with writing this. And that's where I think my background in theater and music and whatnot kind of helped me to simulate these characters within my writing so intimately.
I really applaud you for being able to describe that so concisely, because I think at least Dr. Chan, who hosts this show, she and a number of other hosts on our platform are always talking about clearing the energies. And how can you do that? And I know myself as a certified coach, when I first started life coaching, I would be crying with the client. I would be an emotional wreck because I was taking it all in. I didn't have any boundaries. So I think boundaries are also important, and also clearing energies. What do you do for self care?
For myself, I it's funny. It's like as soon as I'm done writing, especially when it's a negative character, I try to actually avoid doing really, really um dark characters, because it actually scares me, to be quite honest, because of the vibes and the energy. And it's just, yeah. But after I'm done doing that, I'll actually go and have a shower or a hot bath, and then just recompose myself. And then I go and be with my family, and that really brings me back, makes me feel quite happy, and just that it helps separate that character from myself, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And a question I have for you, I know that you have a phenomenal publicist. We really appreciate Mickey Mickelson, and he's got a very wonderful group of clients. What are you finding from the authors you're interacting with today versus when you first started? So, in other words, you had mentioned previously that the writing for television and movies doesn't, oh, it's not always congruent, it's not always logical. Are you finding there's been an evolution in terms of writing by authors today as opposed to when you first started?
Oh yeah, there's a huge change in the world with authors. Like, when I was younger in my youth, the author world was so different. Like, only the big ones make it. And even that, like, it's just like what they said, like with Harry Potter, it took her 11 times to submit her story before it was picked up. But I find in the past, the author industry was a lot more clicky. It was a lot more clicky, and you definitely had to really, really follow a certain guideline or standards. It wasn't as open with the storytelling. There wasn't as many styles to present a story. It was very almost textbook. Um, and if you were a nobody, if you did not publish in a house, where today we see a rise in indie authors. There's been such a difference because of I guess, social media has gotten so big that it's almost like the publishing houses are starting to lose their place a little bit, or their grounding, because before they could demand kind of unfair contracts, very unfair, where the writer gets peanuts, or they're almost like a ghost writer, where they're not really getting what they deserve, right? Because they were marketing their book. So But nowadays, a lot of the work in marketing or formatting a book is so easy. Well, it's easier to figure out. Like you could just YouTube how to put or format a book, and then some people can pick it up really good, others kind of struggle. But it's just easier nowadays to put your own content together. um, that there's been a rise in indie authors, but also with that rise, there's also been kind of a shift in standards where the standards are not the same. And there's a lot more coaching to be an author. There's a lot more uh, knowledge where before it was more tight-lipped, um, where you had to specifically go to school or get certain degrees to understand, but now the knowledge is a lot more open, I find. Um, where, yeah, before it was more clicky and harder to get into, but now it's more open. There's more open mindedness to different stories, and genres are absolutely there's like never ending genres, because before it was very simple with the type of genres, but now there's like break off branches to one genre. Like, for example, fantasy. There's not just fantasy. You could be a dark fantasy, a romance fantasy, historic fantasy, all this stuff. Like, there's almost never ending branches of the different types of streams you can be in.
There's a lot of opportunity, that's for sure. So, what's next for you?
For me, I really want to continue writing and publishing my books. I've been working on Land of the Dragon 2, but I really want to focus on actually doing an audiobook for Land of the Dragon. I have the old recordings that I listened to, and it was very epic. A lot of people really liked it, because there were so many voices, right? There wasn't just one narrator. There was just a voice for every character. Even the background characters had different voices. And I would like to do that again. I really want a dramatized audiobook once more, because I feel that really gave life to the book, and it just really brought it alive for the audience, and I want to bring that back. So that's kind of what I'm looking into doing, is updated, really well done audiobook for Land of the Dragon. And Land Dragon has won several awards, so I'd like to do it justice with the audio. I don't want just any old fashion. I want it really well put together. So that's kind of my aim, what I'm looking into doing next.
It sounds like you have very high standards, which is amazing and obviously reflective in the work and the fact that you've won awards. What guidance or coaching would you give to someone out there who maybe they're a young person, they started writing something and they're not getting through it. They're just putting it aside. They're thinking, I'm not good enough. No one's going to want to read this. What would you say to them?
I would say that they need to first find confidence in themselves, because writing, I understand, especially putting something that means so much out to you out there, is hard because it's a piece of yourself. That's why authors are so emotional with their work. It's so competitive, is because they're putting a piece of their heart out there, and for it to get torn apart is absolutely gut wrenching, but it's life, and it makes you stronger. And just find more confidence, because if you believe in yourself and you put your own standards high, um, and work hard towards it, then it's going to be hard for people to chew it apart. Um, because it will gain merit, and it will gain its own respect. So that's what I would say, is just be confident and keep trying. I'm dyslexic, and it was really hard for me to write for years, like, because it's my passion though, but it's also my weakness, and I have to use certain tools to help me through my writing. And even then, I'm much slower than your typical writer. I'm not like an amazing, crazy doctorate type of writer. I'm just a normal person with a learning disability that has worked extremely hard and put everything into my writing. And even then, no one's perfect. There's always going to be some things, but if I can do it, I know other people can do it. So.
Excellent words of wisdom. Thank you, Steffanie. We're actually at the end of our episode. It has literally flown by, and I'm sorry that Dr. Chan wasn't here, but I feel very honored to be able to have had this conversation with you today. What would you like to leave our audience with, and what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, yeah, just like you shared earlier, the www.landofthedragon.ca is a good way to reach me. I'm also on Facebook at Land of the Dragon. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on X. I'm everywhere. I'm not hard to reach. And yeah, I just really hope, honestly, the inspiration behind what I do, whether it's directing or writing or whatever, is I really want to make an impact in people's lives, and I want the stories to resonate with people so that they can learn from them and that it can inspire them in their own lives. So that's what I'd like to leave people with.
Thank you so much. And again, please do go over to landofthedragon.ca and reach out to Steffanie. We wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing you again as you continue your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Please do reach out to Steffanie. And if you're not aware, we do have 2 YouTube channels, USA Global TV and Radio, as well as Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Our shows are now also podcasts in addition to live streaming broadcasts. And some of our shows are on Roku worldwide, Amazon Fire, E360 TV, and Zizzle TV as well. We're saying goodbye for now, but please do come back and see us for our next show. We'll be happy to have you join our community of elevated listeners. Go over to our website, which is usaglobaltv.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you again soon. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents our partner and sponsor, Mr. Philip Sykes and the British School of Excellence. Building confidence, changing lives. And now, proudly presenting The Polished Professional.
On a transformative journey with the British School of Excellence's comprehensive suite of masterclasses, crafted to elevate your professional and personal life. 8 outstanding modules will elevate you to the next level. Module 1, Exploring Life's Purpose, delves into the depths of self-discovery, guiding you to chart your unique path to fulfillment and success. Module 2, Mastering Professional Presence and Confidence. This masterclass is a deep dive into the art of self-assurance and commanding presence, which is essential for standing out in today's competitive landscape. Module 3, Learn the secrets of visual impact, how to curate a personal style that amplifies your professional brand. Module 4, Mastering Professional Etiquette and Communication Excellence, navigating the nuances of corporate interaction with grace and tact. Module 5, Elegance in Eloquence. We impart powerful techniques to captivate and persuade any audience with your oratory skills. Module 6, Unlock the potential of your emotional intelligence, EQ, and harness the ability to connect, empathize, and lead with emotional savvy. Module 7, Mastering DISC, building a gateway to understanding behavioral styles, fostering better personal and professional relationships. Module 8, Mastery in Dining Etiquette, building your confidence to perfect the subtleties of dining with finesse, enhancing your social savviness at any table. Step into the Polished Professional program where poise, elegance, and excellence aren't just taught, they're instilled for life. Join us to redefine your potential and polish your professional edge.
To learn more, go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. The British School of Excellence are investors in people. Let us invest in you.